Hello everyone and welcome to the next episode of Webinar Wednesday hosted by Profit Business Group. My name is Colin Pick and I'm the Business Central consultant here at Profit. So the objective of today is to learn about everything in regards to payables in Business Central. So we're going to cover the setup, we're going to enter in an invoice, and we're going to pay that invoice. And then finally we'll take a look at some of the inquiry options available to us. Okay, so let's take a look. Now, before we can start entering in invoices in the system and paying them, we're going to want to make sure that our vendor card is set up correctly. At Profit, we love to preach consistency, and a great way to make sure we have consistent vendors entered into the system is by using vendor templates. So we'll touch on that a little bit, and I'll also go over some of the key fields on a vendor card, such as payment terms, posting groups, and I'll talk a little bit about our check date format. Okay, so let's jump into Business Central and take a look. So we can see here, I'm on my demo environment. I'm going to jump into vendors. So this pulls up a list of all the vendors we have in the system. To apply a template, I can click the new button, which is going to allow us to choose one of the templates we already have in the system. And templates are great. They allow for easier and faster setup of vendors in the system. And all those vendors that have used that same template are going to be consistent to one another. So you know that the setup is the same throughout those vendors. Okay, I'm just going to drill into one of these templates to show us what is available to us on it. So this is our domestic vendor. We can see that it's using our domestic posting groups here. Okay, so all vendors that are set up using this template are going to have the same posting groups. We could also do things such as setting with the payment terms code, and there's a slew of other options available to us. Okay, so let's pull up a vendor here in the system so we can take a look at some of the fields available to us. So I'm going to choose Fabricam. So we can see the first section here available to us is just some general information about the vendor. We can jump right into our vendor ledger entries if we click on one of these hyperlinks here. The second section we have is our address and contact information. So this is just general information about the address of the vendor. And so what's important here is our invoicing section. So this is where we can put tax information, such as if the vendor's tax liable and what their tax areas are. As well, this is the vendor posting group, so this is a very important field here. This governs which GL is going to be hit when we post using this vendor. Other important fields here we want to take a look at are our payment terms code. So we do have a list here in the system. So these can be all set up as you guys see fit. And we can see this one here, it's set up for CM, which is current month. So this vendor has to pay within the current month. Other important fields here I wanted to point out is this check date format. So if you guys are going to be using checks in the system, you're going to want to make sure that this check date format is set correctly. I have had clients before who have had issues with dates on their checks, and we determined that it was due to this check date format here not being set correctly. So if you're going to be paying vendors via check, just make sure that you set this field, check date format and check date separator as you wish. And so just a final to talk about other things here about the vendor card. If we're going to be receiving, let's say, inventory from this vendor, we can put in what a default location is going to be for us. And just a few other things I want to touch on here is that if we take a look at our fact box, we do have an attachments tab here. So if you want, you can put in notes or links that are related to this vendor so that anybody who's coming into this card can jump right into those documents or right into a homepage or say a homepage for this vendor if they wanted to. Okay, let's next take a look at entering payables in the system. So we're going to see that we can either enter in a purchase order or a purchase invoice in the system. Once it's first entered in, it's going to be entered in as an open transaction, which pretty much means that it hasn't been paid or applied against yet. I'll show you guys what options we have available to us for vendor approvals or purchase invoice approvals. And we'll also take a look at some inquiry options available to us from the payable from the fact box. And finally, I'll touch a little bit on the posting preview and the dates available to us. So let's jump into my demo environment again here, and we'll get a purchase invoice entered. I'm just going to navigate over to my purchase invoices here. And I'm going to choose the plus new button here to create a new purchase invoice. So first thing it's requiring from us is a vendor number here. So I'm going to choose Fabricam. That's the vendor we're working with today. And I want you guys to keep an eye on the fact box once I click on there. And we'll see that all of this data is now entered in for us. And this is based on our vendor number 10,000, Fabricam. So what's great about this is it gives us a very quick snapshot of what this vendor has for a balance. And as you notice that these are all hyperlinks, so we can drill through into this information here if we wanted. Okay, so moving on here into our general section of the invoice, we can see that we have some dates here that have come through. So it looks like we have a document date of June 1st and a due date of June 30th. Now, if you guys remember from earlier in the webinar today, we talked a little about payment terms. So I believe that this vendor had the payment term CM, which was current month. So that means that this vendor invoice here, it's due at the end of the current month, and that's where this June 30th date comes from. We'll see that we have another required field here as denoted by this red star, and it wants an invoice number, so I'm just going to enter one in here. There we go. And I'll tab through, and we can continue on in our invoice here. So I'm going to go down to the line section. What we have here is the ability to choose multiple different types of transactions that we want to put on our line. So we can use a GL account, an item, a fixed asset even. But I'm just going to leave it at item for now. And let's just assume for this demo purposes, we want to buy 20 chairs. Okay, so I can use the search feature here to narrow down my list of chairs in the system, and let's choose these Paris guest chairs. We're going to want to make sure we choose a location code so we know that where our chairs are going to go to, and we can enter in an amount. So let's say 20 chairs we're going to be ordering. Okay, there we go. So we have some other standard fields here in regards to dimensions and line discounts as well. So just touch a little bit on our line discount here. So if we wanted to enter in a discount for this particular line, we can go ahead and enter in a percentage right here, and that will automatically calculate for us. Let's say we had two lines and we wanted to enter in a discount for both of those lines at once. We could either enter it in on each of the lines here, or we can enter in an invoice discount here, and that'll be applied to both lines. Okay, so moving on, we have our invoice details section. So this is important in regards to which taxes we might want to charge, or if this vendor's tax liable or not. And finally, we have a shipping section. So where is this item going to be shipped to? Okay, so I just want to touch a little bit more now here about the options available to us on the top ribbon. So we can send an approval request to a manager here. So say we did enter in the invoice and we wanted our manager to approve it, we can send that request. Available to us as well, we can add in some comments or attachments for this purchase invoice. And what's really cool is we can use the incoming document feature here. So incoming documents, if you guys aren't aware, it's a way to import let's say invoices or other PDF documents into the system. And what your data entry clerk can do is they can pull up those invoices in the system using this incoming document here. So they would go and they would select this invoice here in the system. And what that will do is that will attach that document to this purchase invoice. And so now that invoice document will be attached here, and as well it will flow through as we enter in this transaction to the system. So if it's a purchase order, it will flow to the purchase invoice, it'll flow through to the payment. So that's available to us as well. And finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the OCR service, or optical character recognition. So what that is, it's a third-party service that allows us to take a screenshot or a picture of an invoice, and Business Central will be able to be trained so that it knows what to look for on that invoice, and it can actually enter in everything from that invoice into the system on its own without having a data entry clerk have to touch anything on the keyboard. Okay, so just keep in mind that that is an option available to us if we wanted to go that route. So finally here, I wanted to talk a little bit about the posting preview. So before I post anything in the system, especially if I'm a newer user, I would love to use the posting preview, which allows me to see the implications of what this entry is going to have throughout the system. So we can see here that it's going to create a 4-line GL entry for us. It's going to have a vendor ledger entry as well as some other entries here in the system. So these are all hyperlinks, so we can drill through here to see that this is going to create this invoice here on this vendor's account. Okay, so I would strongly suggest that, especially when you're new in the system, you always do a preview posting, just so you know what the implications of your posting is going to be throughout the system. Okay, now that we got our invoice entered into the system, let's take a look at what needs to be done to pay that invoice. So to do so, we're going to be using a payment journal. From the payment journal, I'll show you how we can apply the payment to the invoices, and I'll demonstrate the suggest vendor payments module for you guys just very quickly. And then finally, I'll also show you guys what needs to be done to print checks in the system. So let's jump back into Business Central for a quick demo. So we can see here I'm still in my demo company, and I'm going to go to my payment journal. I'll choose the general journal here. And so we can see I got a line here ready for entering. It's giving me the document number of G04001, so keep that in mind. And first thing it's asking me for is my account number, and I'm going to just stay working with the Fabricam company here. So I actually don't need to enter an amount because that is going to be filled in automatically for me once I choose my entries that I want to apply to. So I'm going to go to process and apply entries. You'll notice here that we got 2 invoices in red. So red usually means that these are overdue. They're red because they want you to know to look at them. So just keep these 2 ones in mind here. But for now, we're going to be working with the one here that we just entered in the system. So if we can determine that this is actually the one that we entered in by going to Actions and Show Posted Document. And so we can see here, yeah, that this is our invoice, yeah, a quantity of 20 here, and the Paris guest chair in the color of black. Okay, so that's the invoice we wanted to pay. That's the one we just entered in. So if I do want to select it, what I'm going to do here is go to Process and set my Applies to ID. So what we'll notice here is that it entered in the document number for the payment. So what it's showing us is that the document number for this payment is now applied to this invoice. Okay, so once we apply everything we want, so we could do that for all these multiple lines here if we wanted to pay all of them. But just for demonstration purposes, we're just going to choose this one here. And if we're ready to pay it, we can click OK. And so we can see that it has filled out the amount for us. So this is a positive amount here because it's reducing the vendor viability. We want to create a check. So we're going to change this to bank account here, and we're going to choose our checkings account. So to pay a check, we would just have to go to our bank payment type, and we can choose computer check from here. And then we would just print the check from this window. Okay, so nice and easy to do here. We can see that we can create a payment and apply that payment to those invoices rather easily. But what I want to show you guys next is the suggest vendor payments. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this line here. And I want to just demonstrate this for you quickly. So if you remember, we did have those 2 overdue payments in the system. So what we can do is use, I think it's under prepare here, the suggest vendor payments. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a box here with a whole bunch of criteria for us. So we can run this for multiple vendors. We can run this for all our vendors. So what it's going to do, it's going to go through the system using the criteria we have set up here, and it's going to choose all of the invoices for all of the vendors that are due for payment. Okay, so we could do that for all vendors here. If I wiped out this this filter, and we can bring in all those onto our payment journal in the click of a button. But we'll just do it right now for this one here, just to keep it easy. So I'm going to click OK. And so what we can see here, it has brought on both of those overdue invoices for us to pay. So what I could do next is same thing here. I can change these to bank account and create my payment that way. Okay, so very powerful tool, saves a lot of time, and it's just a great way to utilize the artificial intelligence within Business Central. Okay, now that we got our payables entered and paid in the system, let's take a look at the options available to us for inquiring on those transactions. I'm going to go back into my demo environment for you guys here, and I'm going to navigate over to my vendor listing. So first thing you're going to see here on the right hand side is that we have our vendor statistics, and so this is dynamic in that it changes based on which vendor we have selected. Okay, so from here we can see what the balance is, any payments or refunds, and what the last payment date is, for example, things that we can take a look at. Also on this fact box, we can drill right into posted receipts or posted invoices for this vendor, or even open ones. If I take a look at the top ribbon here, we do have a report section. So there's a slew of out-of-the-box reports available to us. So if we wanted our vendor trial balance or aged accounts payable, we can run those right from this vendor listing window. But what I want to show you guys next is the vendor ledger entries window. So this is one of the most important pages in Business Central when it comes to inquiring on your vendors, and this also goes for customers as well. This vendor ledger entries or customer ledger entries, it's actually a pretty powerful page where you can do a lot of stuff. So we can get straight into our vendor ledger entries for Fabricam simply by clicking on this balance hyperlink. So what that's going to do, it's going to pull up all the entries in the system that make up that balance. Okay, so for Fabricam here, all of these entries make up that $200,000 balance that we saw on the previous screen. And we'll see here when I scroll over to the side that actually all of these transactions are open in the system. So we can see there's a little filter here. So this is denoting that all of these are open in the system, meaning that it has an amount remaining higher than zero. Okay. Other things that we can do from this window, we can actually create a payment right from here if we wanted to. So we could select which invoices we wanted to pay from here, and then we can go to create payment. And we can also apply entries. So say we did create a payment and we didn't apply it to any entries in the system, we can apply those payments to invoices from this window. As well, we can reverse transactions from here. I'm going to just give you guys a little note of caution that if you are reversing transactions, they have to be fully unapplied, which is where this unapply entries button comes in handy. Okay, so we can see a lot of reporting options and inquiry options available to us. Of course, we have the edit in Excel here. If we wanted to open up all of these transactions here in Excel, we can do that as well. I'm going to go next to our homepage just to finally show you guys here what's available to us in regards to payables on the homepage. So right from here, we can see that we do have some ongoing purchase orders and purchase invoices in the system. If we wanted to, we can drill right into those from here. Okay, so we got some outstanding vendor invoices, 31 of them to be in fact. If we click on it there, it's going to show all 31 of them here in a listing for us. Moving along here, we can see here that we got a lot of reports available to us on the homepage. Of course, everything here is customizable, but just to overview it quickly. So I got an aged accounts payable here that we could view, as well as some Power BI reports that we can create for us. So that pretty much takes us to the end of my webinar here. To recap, we've taken a look at the vendor cards and vendor templates. We created an invoice and we paid that invoice, applying the payment to the invoice. And lastly, we took a look at some of the reporting and inquiry options available to view vendor transactions. Thank you for watching. This is the last webinar we're going to have in this format. So starting in the new year, look for some new Business Central webinars coming from Profit Business Group in a new format. Thanks for listening. Take care.